Today we are going to be installing ESP-IDF using the terminal, but first we need to install the prerequisite brew. So I'm going to just be copying and pasting the commands I already figured out. And this command I just copied is the one to download and install Homebrew. I'm going to be entering my password, and that will take me a second. And we are off to the races to downloading and installing Brew. Afterwards, I'm going to modify the ZSH file using the inline text editor inside the terminal using Nano. Now I'm going to paste Nano in and copy the export path to Homebrew command or text. And we will reload the ZSH file by doing source ~/.zshrc. Sorry for being a little bit slow of a typer here. And I optionally included the uninstall brew command just in case you needed that. Now I'm going to be installing the prerequisites for ESP-IDF, which is CMake Ninja DFU util, and installing Apple Rosetta 2 right afterwards. And now I'm copying the install Python 3 command, as we will need that for ESP-IDF because that's what it uses. And don't worry about the error you see on the screen. That just means that I have already installed some of these packages inside of my other user. And I will be installing or cloning the ESP-IDF 5.4 repository with the folder ESP-IDF, and it'll take a minute to download, so I'm going to speed it up here in a second, as you can see. And we're installing the ESP-S3 command, and we're installing the boards for ESP32S3 and the ESP32 because those are the two main ones that I'll be using. And we are going to go into our text editor inside the terminal and add the contents inside the Google Doc into our file, so we can run ESP-init later on to init our terminal. But actually we will be using the GUI for some of you instead of just typing everything into the terminal using idf.py. And now I am going to reload the CSH file. And there we go. ESP-init, and we're good to go. Now we're going to run idf.build just to see that it worked. Oh, it worked. Now we're going on to the next step. Now, for most of us, we probably don't have the TTYL driver installed, so we can't really communicate with or see our ESP32 inside of our project or see all the debugging logs. So we're going to be installing that. It's just like installing anything else. You basically click, drag it to the applications, and then you'll double click applications and run it once. But here I am messing up. And then I'll double click on it after I realize, oh, it's already installed. So go here. It's right above my mouse cursor, but I'm looking downwards in the wrong direction. And yeah, just double click on it, click install. When it pops up, open it, install. And we are done, and we will reboot our MacBook and install CLion, which will take only about a minute and a half depending on your internet speed. It's only a gig. And we will install it just like we did the previous package for the TTYL driver for the debugging. And since I already have it installed, it's going to basically just open up for me after, or it's going to say, hey, would you like to actually add this in again? And I'll click no, and I will just open up CLion manually and start my 30-day free trial. CLion does cost money if you have not already purchased. It's free for current students, and you get a 40% discount for graduate students, and we will start our free trial now and close out of this page. And we'll skip the import Visual Studio Code. And install ESP-IDF plugin, and then close out the IDE after I realize that, oh, it does not instantly reload. So we're going to click on Create Project, and we are going to recognize that the library is not there and restart our IDE, or not the project, the plugin. And here's CLion rebooting. We're going to go back to the plugins, make sure that it's installed. ESP-IDF, it is. We're going to click Create New Project, and we're going to name it Hello World, but we're going to select the ESP32S3 since that's the board that we are using. And we're going to go find our ESP-IDF file, which will take me a minute because I'm not too used to the MacBook yet. But I'm going to click on Documents, click on my Macintosh hard drive, click my user, go to ESP-IDF, well, ESP, and then ESP-IDF afterwards, since that's the one that we installed. And you'll see v5.4 because I installed it for Visual Studio Code earlier today. And we're going to name our project Hello World. Now that you've created a project, you're going to see it take a minute to load. You're going to just look at the default settings, click OK, and you may see an error that might just be CMake saying we're using a deprecated version, and we're going to go into our main directory and include esp-log-i or esp-log.h so we can log out to our terminal or, add debugging. And here I'm going to add in the debugger for ESP, or I'm going to add the logger. And there are different levels of logging. You have verbose, informational, error, and warning. And we're going to close out the AI assistant and click General to then build our program that we will be flashing to the ESP32. And sometimes you do have to double click. And now we are writing to our board, connecting to it. I recognize that we are in the download mode. So it did flash, but we need to reboot the board and re-go through the process of going into the monitor. So we're going to close out that terminal, and for a lot of us, we'll probably end up using the terminal later on once you realize that you have to double click a lot of these buttons quite often, and you'll just do IDF .py, build, monitor, and flash, sometimes menu config to go through all those variables. And as you can see, we have hello world in the console, and that's what we were expecting.